everybody? Are we ready? Is everybody taking a seat? And maybe getting a little bit more quiet for me to do the introduction? Yes, I see some people are taking some pictures. Okay, but that is finished. Okay, I think we are ready to start. A very big welcome and thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today for this very first edition of the Women in Finance International Conference. It is so amazing to see that there are around 500 people that registered for the event and are celebrating with us the 3 years of Women in Finance Belgium. 350 are here live with us in the auditorium of the National Bank of Belgium. And 150 are connecting with us online, checking in from different countries in Europe. My name is Laura Lumengu, and I will guide you through this day. I'm very honored that Claire and Christine asked me to do that. I'm a senior policy advisor at KBC Bank for corporate banking. I do that by day, and by night, I'm a gender and diversity expert and enthusiast. So for those of you that want to know more, you can connect with me later after the event. Now, before we get started, I want to go through some practical information with you. First and foremost, please do not turn off your phones. Yes, you heard me correct. Do not turn off your phones. Let's get this event trending together and take on social media by sharing content of the event. Make sure to tag @WomenInFinBE and the hashtag you can see right here. In exchange, however, I do ask you to turn off the sound of your phones, especially those of you that are present here live. And for the people online, it is normal that your mic is muted and your video is off. If this is not the case, please do so we can spare some bandwidth and fully concentrate on the lovely voices of the speakers we have here with us today. And we will foresee some specific Q&A opportunities during the event. For the people live here in the audience, don't be shy and raise your hand during the Q&A, and someone of the organization will bring a mic to you. For the people online, I want to introduce to you Anna Maria Franke. She's our chat moderator. She's a graduate. Of course, a big applause for her. Thank you, Anna Maria. She also prepared a lot for the event today, so I think she's very glad that we are doing it right now. She's a graduate with a master's in gender and diversity and recently joined the Women in Finance Belgium as a gender expert. She also brings musical vibes to the team with her artistical skills. And she's up for the difficult task today of selecting questions which you are welcome to post during the event via the chat function. She will then share the selected questions with us during the Q&A. Now, I don't want to steal too much time. I think my clicker is not working anymore. Okay, but it doesn't matter. I don't want to steal too much time from our first speaker, but I want to take a minute to give a short introduction on Christine van Rijsegem. After having held various management positions in Belgium and abroad for the KBC Group, she broke the glass ceiling, or at least put a big dent in it, in 2014 as the first woman to serve as a member of the executive committee for the group and taking up the role as CRO. But I will share a little secret with you. I think that she's equally proud of her chairpersonship of Women in Finance Belgium and also Diversity Rocks, the diversity network at KBC, where I have the opportunity to work with her. So, without further ado, Christine, the floor is yours for the opening speech today.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you so much for the nice introduction. That was not foreseen, but so that was very, very nice. And of course, very good afternoon to all of you, dear members and also friends of Women in Finance in Belgium. It is indeed now 3 years since we have launched our initiative of Women in Finance, and in this very auditorium. And so I can indeed not describe enough how happy I am of meeting you in person again. I would also like to extend a big thank you to the National Bank of Belgium for having us here, and also for all their support over the last years. We shall indeed hear from the governor himself in a few minutes why it made sense to work together. 3 years already, 3 tough, 3 demanding, 3 redefining years behind our screens, as all of you will have experienced, where we had to adjust daily to a new world, both in our personal and in our professional lives. Never indeed has the notion of reinventing one's job been ever so paramount. Never have support networks, inspirational leaders, safe spaces to express oneself and grow ever made so much sense. And I'm so proud to say that Women in Finance Belgium has shown its strengths on all points. And much more, as we will hear today. Thank you. People who are not taking the floor, please mute yourself. And much more, as we will indeed hear today in this conference, a conference, by the way, we have built for you to learn and to share and to network, and also to celebrate. I would also like to stress a couple of points. Some of you might know, or all of you might know, that we started this initiative 3 years ago at a time where we decided that it was time to take our future in our very own hands. And this was still is a private initiative, and still is done on a voluntary basis. But from the outset, we were crystal clear on 3 things. 1, as a collective, we can move the needle and derive strong benefits from improved gender diversity in our organizations. 2, our charter is our compass, and it is our responsibility as a signatory, as a member, to measure progress and to act upon lessons learned. And 3, we act as see fit, but our platform provides benchmarks, insights, access to knowledge and networks, practical tools and trainings also to support us. And despite COVID, Women in Finance has delivered workshops, presentations, structured dialogues in our work streams, toolkits, communication activities, promotion of our members and initiatives. Also, by the way, towards institutional partners and also sister platforms abroad and partners in different sectors. And I would like to say a special thank you to Commissioner Dalli and also Vice President Regner for engaging with us, and also to our Prime Minister, Alexander De Croo, for his support since day one. Thanks to all of you, dear members and partners, we made things happen. We now are 48 financial institutions representing all sides of the banking and insurance sector in Belgium. Most importantly, we have kept the fire, the enthusiasm of our beginnings, as shown by the energy deployed in our working groups, and also for the preparation of this conference, as Laura has mentioned, our first international event. And we moved in a very structured fashion, with specialized work streams, accountable and relentless, responsible and highly motivated, working with KPIs and counting and measuring. Indeed, we too want to measure better and act upon facts we collect about women in finance progression. And here, I really want to salute the mobilization of our members, young and old, as it is your contributions and your constant feedback that keeps us going and sharpening. In fact, we are running. We know that gender diversity, equality, and inclusion in our sector is long-distance running. But one must now consider sprinting to ensure that progress does not slow down, with all the evidence we have on the necessity to act, as you know, for economic and financial performance, but also for the future of work in our sector, also for sustainability, for remaining attractive towards young generations, and there is no excuse. But I'm afraid that we cannot be satisfied with the current speed of progress. Why does it take so long to achieve the last miles? Because if we want improvements in our lifetime, we must accelerate and work for all women in the sector, together with men as allies. By the way, this is our priority for 2022, and you will see and you will hear in today's conference, we will give tips and tricks, stories, best practices, contacts, benchmarks, and much more inspiration. And this is an event, I hope, designed to energize, to give fresh impetus to our efforts as a platform of member organizations, as a group of dedicated professionals, as individuals, eager to make their mark and build the financial sector of the future. Today we shall also hear from abroad, from other sectors, from the legislature, but also from us, inside the sector, and discuss our practices, notably on our 3 priorities for 2022. That is 1, engaging with men as allies, 2, engage with CEOs, and 3, engage with the youth. So I hope, dear ladies and gentlemen, that you will enjoy this session. Also, people who are connecting remotely, and as Laura has also mentioned, that we can have good interactions with precise questions for our speakers. So let me conclude by thanking every one of you, the members of the steering committee, the members of the different working streams, and all the Women in Finance members who indeed have signed the charter. And I will not list all names because, of course, of the risk of forgetting someone. But it is thanks to all of you, working mostly on a voluntary basis, that we stand here today, proud of our achievements, and I'm confident that we can help model the future, where men and women can thrive and grow. So, happy anniversary to all of you. I wish you a very excellent conference, and now I would like to turn to the Governor of the National Bank of Belgium, Pierre Wunsch, who joins us online.
Hi, Christine. Do you hear me? You hear and see me?
Hello, Pierre.
Yes.
Hello, Pierre. We can hear you perfectly. So the floor is yours, please. Do I have to switch off?
Okay, great. It looks a bit like Big Brother. Sorry for that, but I'm in France. And indeed, 3 years have passed since we first hosted you for the launch, the official launch of Women in Finance in the auditorium of the bank. And so it's a great pleasure to welcome you here again. As you said, 3 years, 3 years that have been difficult years with COVID and so on. And again, in a way, this is a sort of restart session in the same place as 3 years ago. I would like, of course, to welcome you all, the new members in particular, but maybe more importantly, to really congratulate you for the progress and the growing influence of women in finance in those last 3 years. This has been impressive, and I have indeed the impression that there is here a new momentum on which we need to build. For the rest, maybe the only thing that has not changed in the last 3 years is indeed this auditorium. Our habits, our ways of working, of communicating have been turned upside down. Sometimes bringing positive developments, like offering me the possibility to address you from a distance in a hybrid format, but also maybe bringing new challenges. For instance, telework risk isolating even more those that were not fully included before in our companies and culture. And I think this is a development we need to pay attention to and look at what the impact could be of this telework, these new ways of working on diversity. And indeed, what we've learned in the last few years that change is a constant. It never stops, throwing ever-growing number of challenges at us. And to rise to these challenges, we are going to need to be both resilient and creative. Resilience will help us adapting, and creativity finding new ways and maybe sometimes better ways to progress on the diversity front. And let me maybe share here with you some of my experience, but maybe also concerns with you. Because let's face it, I mean, the task is not an easy one. We live in a world that is ever more polarized. And what you and I probably would view as a necessary progress is being challenged in Europe, but even more so outside Europe. We tend to view history as relatively linear, going from progress to progress. But sadly enough, it's not. And we only have to look at what's taking place in Ukraine to be convinced. And at least not as measured against our short lines. So in a way, this is all about Trump, of course, but it's also Erdogan, the Orbans of this world. But it's not only them. And again, I think we should ask why Trump. I mean, there are deep movements in our societies that have allowed Trump to be elected. And we have examples in our countries of similar figures that get some attention. So one question is, are we immune to these developments? And I'm honestly not so sure. And maybe to come back to my own experience in terms of diversity, I was in a way naive because I thought, at DNBB, the problem was so obvious that there was a lack of diversity, and certainly at the top of the organization that, when you are confronted with such an obvious challenge, the direction is clear. You need to improve. And then you say, okay, let's do something. Let's improve. Let's set up, a diversity council, fix objectives, targets, and so on. But what I quickly realized is that when you start working on diversity, as opposed to being in denial of the problem, which I guess we were, that quickly leads you to enter into a lot of very difficult debates for which you have not been prepared. On our level of tolerance or intolerance for some behaviors, on where you don't draw the line, on the many issues that live in our societies. And getting it right, I guess from your and our perspective, is not enough, I'm afraid. And in Dutch, you have this nice distinction between gelijk hebben and gelijk krijgen, to be right and to convince basically people that we should move in the same direction. So in other words, and I'm maybe biased because I just had a reminder on change management at a leadership track that we had. How much energies do we need to put in this, awareness and desire that we have to use this ADKAR change typology before taking the measures and actually making sure that it's deeply ingrained in our organization, so awareness and desire. And I'm afraid that we mostly tend to forget a bit of that and do too little of it as we start moving in this direction. And just again as an illustration or an anecdote, we recently hosted the Fabelfin campaign on diversity. So Fabelfin is the bank association in Belgium. So we put the material on our internet with teasers and all, and there was a lot of material. And I certainly do not regret it. But I can tell you that there were very heated debates on our intranet reacting to this material. And it made clear that under the surface, actually people did not agree on the diagnostic, on where we were, on how inclusive DNVB was or was not for different groups or minorities. But also I'm a bit afraid that they did not agree on the philosophy or some of the concepts that were presented in the material. And again, purely anecdotal, and it was not hugely visible, but there was in the material a reference to white male privilege. I personally think this was not very useful. And this is not to deny that there is some objective truth to it. I mean, on average, white males are privileged. But I think people don't want and like to be equated to the group they belong to. There is a lot of variety within groups, and there are white males that are not privileged. So whether we are white, black, yellow, female, or male, we don't like to be put in a box, especially if we feel that this is a box we cannot escape. And at the NBB, and I guess in some of your organization, we are working on psychological safety. And I personally see it as an essential complement of our diversity initiatives. And what I've already learned on this issue, we only start, but we have had already some discussion, is that people do tend to assume that others, the others that are not maybe like them, they should feel safe. That's typically the answer you get. And that, I think, is because we don't like to see ourselves as chauvinistic. We like to see ourselves as tolerant and open, but we are, in a way, all of us, somehow chauvinistic. And how often don't you hear in our conversation, come on, I mean, this was only a detail. I mean, why do you get excited about that? Or this person, she's just oversensitive, or he is just oversensitive. But then maybe in the other direction, how many times have I heard, yeah, well, sorry, but it's your turn. We've been there for 3,000 years, so now it's your turn. I don't think this is very helpful, but it's the reality of our diversity discussions in our organizations. And as Christine said very well, I think we need to do this together. Otherwise, we are going to pretend that all is fine, and we are actually going to be confronted with a number of issues behind the surface. So the question is really, how do we raise the bar of our ambitions, accelerate as a sprint, as Christine said, while not at the same time feeding the growing polarization in our societies, which is an issue that I'm really concerned about. And I think this is a very fine line to tread for all of us. So let me leave it at that, with a question for which I do not have an easy answer, except to keep on returning maybe to this awareness and desire, because at the end of the day, if we create the awareness and if we create the desire, then it's going to be deeply ingrained in our organizations. And anyway, the aim for sure is worth it. And again, most welcome at the National Bank of Belgium. I wish you a great conference and an excellent afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Pierre. It is
I'm here. Should I cut my mic and camera now, or?
We're at a hybrid event, so technical hiccups are normal. I think you all know that the catchphrase of last year and this year was, you are still muted, please turn on your mic. So yes, we will have some hiccups of those as well. Again, thank you, Pierre, for taking such good care of us and the team of the National Bank in Belgium for providing the accommodation. Like Christine said, 3 years of women in finance. What a ride. Our next speaker, she will fast forward and look at the Women in Finance imprint and how it made its mark. She will bring insights into the latest research they did on blocking factors for women and men in the financial sector. And who else than the co-chair of Women in Finance and senior expert in diversity and inclusion at Febelfin than Claire to bring this topic. I have a fun fact about Claire. We first met 5 years ago during a guest lecture when I was studying also the Masters in Gender and Diversity that Anna Maria did. I was impressed by all the steps she was taking back when she was working at BNP as head of diversity and inclusion. And today, I literally have her number on my speed dial for tips and tricks regarding diversity and inclusion actions we organize at KBC. So I'm really looking forward, Claire, to what you have to say. The floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me all? Fantastic. I mean, it's such an unbelievable moment of joy to be in this room with all of you. Such a diverse group. Let me just, I think I heard the governor say something very important. Nobody likes to be in a box. That's very true. But I know about one box which is large enough to where we can all find our own place, and that is the box of allyship. That is the fact that we can all, male, female, privileged or not, we can be true allies to others. So I think that's really maybe the box next to this very nice box of the National Bank where we can all find our own seats. So this incredible journey that Christine mentioned to you that we did all these 3 years is especially a sector initiative. And that makes it so interesting. Can you imagine, like, one sector, like finance, deciding at some point, first of all, with just a few people, and then at some point, being like 90% of a sector, like becoming a real platform of working, sharing, non-stop with small institutions, big institutions. It's just something fabulous. And there is someone who is in a like very broad position in Belgium who is looking at this and who's saying, wow, what happens in finance is truly interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, let's listen to the Prime Minister, Alexander De Croo.
Participants who are not seeing us right now, with us on the screen just like this.
That's fine.
It's not the best solution, but it's a solution. So. I will have to get away. That we My mic is now off. Maybe we should just try to speak like this.
I think we will keep Mr. De Croo for a later moment, and Claire, you can...
Okay, that's totally okay. Well, that's the kind of things which happens, but I can guarantee you, you will listen to him, and he has really a great message for us. So that's totally okay. So before calling the Prime Minister, let's call someone also very important, Nathalie Delare. So Nathalie has been the architect of a survey on which we will give you a bit of insights already. And Nathalie has been for a certain time, has made her whole career in banking, has been a senior manager in banking, and decided during the pandemic that it was time to make a break, and she started doing this Master in Gender again. And so during that Master in Gender, she joined Women in Finance so that we could build this survey that was answered by 1,351 of you. So Nathalie, welcome. And just before we start digging into the results, I'm so happy with the evolution of our logo. You know, 3 years ago, that was a very smart corporate logo, a bit pink, a bit classic. Then we made it a bit fresher. Then we made it inclusive. And inclusive by the colors, inclusive by the genders, inclusive by the little dot, which means we, men, women and men, and X all together. So thanks a lot for the creation of the logo. And now let's move to the preliminary results. And Nathalie, tell us a little bit about who are these 1,351 participants.
I don't think that the mic works.
Oh, you need to push it. That one, you just... No, it works. No? This one? No. I'll take mine.
Yeah, we share mics then.
We'll share.
We'll share mics. Thank you, Claire, for your nice introduction and for the opportunity to work with you. It was a pleasure and an honor. Okay, let's go to the survey. As Claire said, we had more than 1,300 respondents. Who are they? So if you first have a look at gender, we see that we have 69% of female respondents, 31% of male respondents, and a small portion of X. For the rest of the survey, we will not go further with the X because the group was too small to have relevant insights. I think that's not too bad for a survey launched at the moment when men in finance was still women in finance. So we're very happy about that result. Second, if we look at age, we see a fair representation of all the age groups in the sector. A bit less of young people, but that's reality in the sector. Next, if you look at the subset of the sector, we see 59% of banking respondents and 31% of insurance company respondents. 10% others, others being fintech, digital only, and regulator. So that will really allow us to make a comparison between banking, insurance, and other. Fourth thing is the level of seniority in the organization. There we see 41% of employees, 44% of middle management, and then 15% of senior executives. And we were very happy with this 15% of senior executives because it really will allow us to do a deep dive into the pool of senior executives.
Okay, so what are they saying about the sector?
So first we asked what are the characteristics that can be associated with the sector, and we made word clouds. So it's very clear that what is absolutely associated with the sector is 1, result-driven, 2, control, 4, competition. We also asked whether there were characteristics that respondents would like to see developed more. And there we have a top 3, which is empathy, human interconnectedness, and creativity. Now, it's important to note that both male and female respondents want the same thing. So we observed that through the whole survey that all genders basically want the same thing. We see that the trend is stronger with female respondents and even more so with senior executives, females. But basically, everybody wants the same thing, which is a good thing. Also, statistically, the differences we identified were relevant. And one of the points is inclusion. There, I said everybody thinks that's important, but females think that it's even more important. And Claire will now do a deep dive into inclusion and psychological safety.
Yes, with pleasure. So, as you know, the classical definition of inclusion is everyone can be truly themselves at work. This means being allowed to learn from your mistakes, daring to have a different opinion, maybe having your own leadership style without feeling that you need to copy one. So let's see what people say. And yes, it's not so bad. 63% of all respondents say we can indeed, in our job, learn by making mistakes. That's okay. But still, when we look at senior executives, there you see an interesting difference. 57% of female senior executives versus 70% of male. So male are a bit more optimistic about this in the sector. Then respect. Globally, 65% of all employees say, most of the time, often, I feel respected. A little bit, again, more male than female. And then about the different opinion, well, 60% of employees think, yes, you can express a different opinion. It is valued. It's not only you can, but especially it is valued. But again, we see that there is now a huge difference between the 61% of female senior managers and 74% of male senior managers who think it is okay. And then this question about, do we have to imitate the style of someone else, or can we be truly ourselves? Also, like for leadership. Here again, we see that women tend to, twice more than men, be sometimes imitating some other behaviors in terms of leadership. So back to you, Nathalie.
Okay, soft skills. If we ask respondents, are soft skills appreciated in your company? Then 74% says yes. Okay, nice, good. But the second question we asked was whether soft skills were financially incentivized in the companies. And there the answer was 20%. So I would say it's a quick win for HR departments. The other slide, the other thing that surprised us a little bit was presence. 71% of respondents still believe that being seen at the office is important. And you should keep in mind that the survey was taken post-corona, so after all the teleworking practices were put in place. Still 71% believes that it's important to be seen at the office.
Then there are all these tiny little things, jokes, humor, harassment, that's not tiny at all. And some jokes and some comments are also can be very hurtful. You see here again that the experience of women and men in their career is a bit different. And what you can see it for yourself, sexism, 26% of respondents say they just never heard it, but you have a huge difference between the 34% of male who say they never heard any sexist comments, while it's only 1 woman on 5. Bullying, that's quite stunning. I mean, 60% of women only have never been the target of bullying versus 75% of men. And you know how much bullying can have impact, long-lasting impact. So this is something really to work on. And yes, impact of COVID. People think in general that there was it stayed the same, or possibly it improved a little bit, because obviously you see people through screens, so probably the little jokes, there was a bit less place for that. But still, I think the most important figure is the last one. 65% say this has a long-lasting impact. So we should really, that's also a low-hanging fruit, I think, in terms of action. So.
Okay, the next thing we asked is, okay, what is the impact of all this on your career? And first of all, what do you understand under career? Because career can mean different things for different people. And there again, we had the same top 3 between all respondents. So 1 was to be able to use and develop all my talents. Second was becoming better in my career field as an expert. And third was maximizing my contribution to the organization. So now we have an idea of what people believe that a career is or should be. And then we asked, what are the blocking points that you encountered? The top 3 was again the same for all respondents. 1 was office politics, 2 was work-life balance, and 3 was experienced leadership style. Okay, it's good to know your blockers, but now so what? And there we asked the next question, whether people were contemplating to leave their organization, and especially why they would be leaving. And there 28% of respondents told us that they are contemplating to leave the organization. 28% might not be that much if you heard the 40% of the Great Resignation, but still for the sector it's a lot. And there, if you do a drill down, a split between females and males, you see that there are more females, 31%, who contemplate leaving the organization. And if we look particularly to the senior females, that percentage is 37%. So 37% of female senior executives contemplate leaving the organization. The top three, and there we see a shift in ranking. Reason number one is leadership style. Reason number two is office politics. And reason number three is corporate culture. So work-life balance is not a reason why people contemplate to leave the organization. Okay, so
What next?
what's next? Absolutely. I still have some work to do to crunch the data, run some statistics, and after that, I would like to do some in-depth interviews with female senior executives. So if there are volunteers in the room, drop me a line.
And then, of course, there's the whole work that we want to do with the CEOs, with the heads of HR of our sector. So these information, we consider them crucial. It's not to do like sensation, to make shocking articles. That's not the point. I think we are a brave sector if we are a sector capable of understanding what's happening. But then we need to work on this, of course. So definitely, Women in Finance CEO workstream, for instance, who plans breakfasts with CEOs, will address these points as well and will really work together on this. That's it. So let's see if we can again go back to the Prime Minister. That would be nice.
Thank you.
Let's see if that will work. Here he is. And is he talking? Sorry, Alexander. Maybe you have it. Okay, then we will go to our next part, but I'm guessing actually, oops, that will not work either. So we will look after the break if maybe we can get this technical things working. I can have my notes. Yes. Okay. If we can get this, the videos working, otherwise. Voila, there it is. Thanks, you guys. So we will see, I will quickly repeat, we will see if we can, after the break, get this technical hiccups figured out. Now, then we will move to the next part.
I welcome women in...
Wow. Okay, who are we going for first? Yeah. Mr. De Croo, you will have to wait. Ladies first. Ladies first. So we are very honored to have some words shared by Helena Dalli today. She is the European Commissioner for Equality and the very first in this role since 2019. And Women in Finance has received her support and has been working with her team for quite some time now. And this really signals the recognition that this Belgium initiative receives at the European level. So let's listen to her words.
I welcome Women in Finance for your awareness-raising work and actions to empower women in the labour market. We must harness women's talents, skills, knowledge, creativity and resilience for a more resilient society and stronger economy. We should benefit from our contribution at all levels and in all sectors, including the finance and investment landscape and financial services. Increasing women's participation in the labour market empowers women to thrive, lead and be free, and allows us to shape our own lives, to affirm our role in public life and be economically independent. We know that women university graduates in Europe continue to outnumber men, and that the employment rate of women in the EU is higher today than ever before. Yet, many women still experience barriers to joining, remaining, and taking top jobs in the labour market. These barriers hinder our economic empowerment and prevent us women from reaching our full potential. Data from Eurostat shows that women are underrepresented in the labour market across the EU and that the gender employment gap decreased only slightly over the last 10 years to reach 11% in 2021. An unequal share of care duties at home, as well as the lack of equal parental leave schemes and childcare facilities, has precipitated the rate of women in part-time work to be 3.6 times higher than that of men. This typically hinders women's job prospects. Our policies therefore encourage the sharing of care responsibilities between women and men. The adoption of the 2019 Work-Life Balance Directive is an important milestone in this respect. Member States have until the 2nd of August to transpose the directive into national law. It provides for incentives and possibilities for men to assume an equal share of care responsibilities with women. The directive introduces paternity leave and 2 months of paid parental leave for each parent, as well as rights to carers' leave and flexible working arrangements. These measures help to rebalance a situation where fathers are encouraged to temporarily stay at home and mothers to return to work. This is why, in the same spirit, this autumn the Commission will present a European care strategy. It will highlight the vital role of affordable, quality childcare and long-term care services and underline the value of care work. It includes a proposal for the revision of the Barcelona targets on childcare. These targets have been instrumental in increasing women's participation in the labour market through the provision of childcare. Nonetheless, progress is slow and uneven across the EU. The revision of the targets is therefore necessary to encourage further upward conversions and to halve the gender employment gap in line with the Social Pillar Action Plan. European care strategy should ultimately lead to more and better care services and better working conditions in the sector. This is crucial for gender equality in the EU. But attainment of gender equality is unlikely without gender equality in corporate leadership. While a few EU countries proactively implemented their own legislative or self-regulatory measures, progress in this area also remains very slow and uneven. Women continue to be outnumbered by men in the decision-making bodies of companies throughout the EU, despite their abilities and level of education. This is unacceptable. To address the issue and ensure more transparency in the selection of directors in the largest listed companies, the Commission proposed a directive in 2012. The proposal puts forward a transparent procedure asking large listed companies to carry out the selection for appointment or election on the basis of a comparative assessment. The proposed approach ensures that the qualification, competence and professional performance would be key criteria for the selection process. The negotiations on this file between the co-legislators are progressing well. Hopefully the directive will be adopted this summer. The adoption of the directive would be a major step on the road to gender equality in Europe. It would send a clear message that the European economy makes the best use of its talents. I am confident that our initiatives will bring us closer to our common goal of creating a Europe where women are empowered to shape their own lives and play a role in public life, and where both women and men are free to thrive and lead regardless of their gender.
So we have a lot to look forward to when I listen to the message of Ms. Dali. Of course, as organizations, we don't have to wait for legislation. We can also do some stuff ourselves, like many of the financial institutions are already doing for parental leave.